Let's talk about all the things that I knit in 2024. From sweaters to socks, from cardigans to dresses, I'm going to share every piece that I knit in 2024. Some of those were gifts and some I made for myself. And I decided to go in chronological order, starting in January and then moving all the way to December of 2024. And I'm going to look at the cast off dates. So while some of those projects had been on the needles for several months, I'm going to share them in the month that I finished them. Let's get started. By the way, if we haven't met before, my name is Annika and I'm coming to you from Germany. I am an avid knitter as well as a natural yarn dyer, and I love everything that is related to the fiber arts. So January started with the Fleur Shawl, which is a free pattern by Espace Tricot. And I knitted this shawl for my daughter. Now this is the second incarnation of this pattern. I already made the exact same one at the end of 2023, and I made this one for myself, but because my daughter liked it so much and wore it a lot, I decided to make one for her as well. And this one used the leftovers that I had from my own project, and it took around 1.5 skeins. The yarn I used is one of my own hand-dyed yarns, so it is the Rosemary and Pines Fiber Arts Merino Sport yarn. And the colorway is called Winter Rose, and I naturally dyed it using cochineal, which turned it into this beautiful, vibrant red. I really liked knitting this project. It is a very simple and enjoyable knit because you only knit garter stitch back and forth, so you are knitting all the time, which is only broken up by these cute bobbles, but you do not have to do a lot of bobbles. So I think it is completely fine, and I really liked working on this piece. Did I say that this is a free pattern? If not, you should definitely have a look. I can only highly recommend it. So my shawl, not sure if you'll be able to tell, is a crescent shape, and the pattern is originally written to be a triangular shape. And to do this crescent shape, I simply followed the modifications that are on the Ravelry project page from Jackie of the Knitting a Good Yarn podcast. I'm going to link those for you in the description in case you are interested in knitting a crescent shaped fleur shawl for yourself. I just realized that I only knitted items for my daughters in January, because this headband I also made for my older daughter. I used another free pattern, which is called the Snowflake Beanie by Church Mouse Yarns and Tees. Yeah, that's right. And I modified it to be a headband because she asked for a headband. And this is how it looks. It used some old stash yarn, and I also added a lining for her. And I really like the way this one turned out. So another successful gift knit. And to go with the headband, I also made her a pair of mitts in January. These are the handed yes, fingered no mitts that fit pattern by Alan M. Silva, another free pattern that I can highly recommend. I used the same stash yarn like I did for the headband, so that she has a matching set, and it was very successful because she wore those mitts a ton. And I only had to modify the pattern a bit in order to compensate for the different yarn weight. I think it is written for a fingering weight yarn, and I used ADK or something like that, but it was very easy and a very quick and enjoyable knit. And after I finished those mitts, I also made one pair for my other daughter, so my younger daughter, and she had asked for a very bright, colorful yarn. I usually do not like to knit with yarn that has any kind of synthetic content, but since my daughter specifically requested it, I bought one skein of a sock yarn off of Etsy. I'm going to link the name of the shop for you in the description box in case you're interested. So this is a classic sock yarn with nylon in it, and it also has this gold stellina. And after making again the handed yes, fingered no mitts that fit mitts for my younger daughter. She also wanted a hat to go with it, so I made the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho, another free pattern, which is a very basic, simple ribbed, all over 1x1 ribbed hat with a folded brim. I also added a pom for her and some lining as well. So this was another successful gift knit because she wore both of these a ton. In fact, she even lost one of the mitts, which was a bit tragic because we just looked everywhere in the school and wherever, but we couldn't find it. And in the end, I had enough leftovers that I could knit another mitt for her. So I made 3 of those in total. And she had a pair again. And I couldn't believe it, but we found the lost mitt during the summer, so months and months after she had lost it, and it was just laying next to the school and it was completely dirty and bleached out by the sun, but we found it, but we couldn't use it anymore. It looked horrible and nothing like the other one, but luckily I had already made a replacement for her. In February, I knitted something for myself, and it is the Saturday Shrug by Jackie Rose. This was also my first time knitting with unspun yarn. This time I used Plötulopi by the Icelandic company Istex, and I used the white color and this light gray, which I think is called Ash Heather. I'm going to put it in the description box in case you're interested. And since unspun yarn is quite fragile and it was my first time, I held 2 strands together in order to give myself just a little bit more wiggle room, and it worked out great. I didn't have a lot of issues, and yeah, I really like the way the pattern is constructed and the versatility of it. But unfortunately, I hardly wear this piece because it turns out that even though I am not very sensitive towards rustic yarn, Plötulopi is just a bit too scratchy for me to wear around my neck. I am fine when it's in a sweater, but for the neck, yeah, it's just not very comfortable to wear, and that's why I would love to make another Saturday Shrug, but this time maybe in Nutiden yarn, which is another unspun yarn but from Honorok Air, or just use a different yarn altogether. But I really like the concept of this pattern, and I would love to make another Saturday Shrug. And one more knit that I finished in February is a pair of socks that I made for my mother-in-law. The pattern that I used is one of my own knitting patterns called the Camaret Socks. I'm going to link it for you in case you're interested. It is a simple broken rib design that simply fits very well and that I have knitted quite a lot with in the last year. The yarn that I used is one of my own hand-dyed yarns that I naturally dyed with logwood, that turned the yarn into this beautiful, very dark navy, which the colorway is called Midnight Sky, and the yarn base is the classic sock decay, which is a rather rustic 100% German merino wool, but it is very comfortable to wear, and I really like knitting with this yarn, and my mother-in-law really likes to wear these socks. So overall, this was a good success as well. So then in March, I knitted with Nutiden yarn from Honorok Air for the very first time, and I enjoyed it a lot. I made the Timepiece Cardigan by Albina McLaughlin in the colorway Lives Linear, and I used 300 grams holding the yarn double. I absolutely loved this cardigan. I wore it a ton. I think it was probably one of my most worn garments throughout the year, but then in November or December something terrible happened and I accidentally, let me show you, shrunk it in the washing machine. I don't really know what I was thinking. I just put it in a bit of a hurry and clearly was not using the wool cycle, and the cardigan shrunk completely. So it is completely felted. I think it still looks very nice, but it's not wearable for me, and I'm not sure if I will be able to find someone to wear it because it is quite stiff now. I was thinking about giving it to one of my little nieces, but I just wanted to hold on to it for a bit longer, to have this as a reminder for me to be a bit more careful with my handmade garments because this was such a sad moment when I pulled it out of the washing machine and realized what I had done. I do have plans to re-knit this piece because I liked it so much. Unfortunately, with knitted in yarn, as they come in collections that sell out, you are not able to get the exact same colorway again. So I decided to purchase some yarn, and I'm going to put up a picture for you. I have some beautiful dusty pink Camaret Snevnook yarn that I am planning to use to knit myself either another timepiece cardigan or maybe, how's that called? There's a Shrug pattern by Beata Jacek from Hedgehog Fibers that I would really like to use. I think it's called the Tweedy Shrug. I'm going to put it up for you so that you can see. I think this would give me a similar effect to my former beloved timepiece cardigan. In April, I knitted a dress as a present for my niece who turned 5 in May. I knitted the Clara Dress by Karin Westergaard Mathisen, and I had made this dress a number of times before for my own daughters, and they really liked the style of this pattern and wore it a lot, so I simply decided to make this one again, but for my niece this time. And the yarn is one that I had previously also used for the other Clara dresses, which is the Sheepies Sunkissed, and she chose the color Ultraviolet, which is the number 21, in case you're interested. It is a very bright purple, and she absolutely adored the dress and has worn it a ton. I used, I think, 6 skeins in total for her, and like I said, she is 5 years old, and I'm sure that she'll be able to wear this dress at least this year and maybe even next year because of the flowiness of the pattern. It is a great versatile piece that fits children for a rather long time. So definitely a pattern I can recommend, and you can also get this pattern for free, which is great. And another piece that I knitted in April is another pair of socks, and this is one of my favorite patterns, also free, and this is the Hermione's Everyday Socks pattern by Erika Lüder, which is a simple knit purl pattern that I really like. Now, the yarn that I used for this is an undyed skein of yarn of my own sock yarn. This time I used the Luster Sock Decay base, which is another 100% German merino yarn, but with a very beautiful drape and a subtle sheen to it, and I really like this base. And the reason that I use the undyed yarn is that I am planning to do some eco printing on the socks, or maybe just some natural dyeing even, but I just wanted to see how it would turn out if I would knit the piece first and then naturally dye it, and not vice versa. So I usually dye the skein first and then knit with it, and I just wanted to experiment. But as you can see, although I already finished those socks in April of last year, I did not do anything with them afterwards. They are still sitting in my sock drawer, and I have not worn them because I want to dye them first. We'll see if I get around to doing this in 2025. May was another gift knit month for me, so my other niece, who is the younger sister of the niece that I made the Clara dress for, turned 3 in May, and I also wanted to make a dress for her, and I chose the Anker's dress pattern by Petite Knit. The yarn I used is the Sandnesgarn Mandarin Petit, which is a 100% cotton yarn, and I used the color 7720, which is a very light turquoise, and it came out very cute. I only needed 4 skeins of this yarn in order to make the dress, but my niece is rather petite, so although she turned 3, I only made the 2-year-old size, I think. And I made one modification to the dress that I really liked, and I decided to go for this picot edging on the hem and also on the sleeves, which turned out very cute in my opinion. And I like the pattern so much that I'm thinking about knitting the Anker's Tee, I think it's called, or Anker's shirt for myself this year. We'll see if I get around to it. And 2 more gifts that I knitted in May were 2 more mitts for my daughters, again using the pattern by Ellen M. Silva, the Handed Yes Fingered No pattern. And the yarn I used for those was the Retrosaria Rosa Pomar Mondim, which is their sock yarn base. And my daughters had picked out those colorways when we were in Lisbon in Portugal and got the chance to visit Retrosaria Rosa Pomar. The colors are called A579 is the yellow one, and the variegated one is 214. I held the yarn double to get a bit more of a substantial mitt to be warm enough, because the sock yarn is a light fingering, and I really like the way it turned out, and my daughters really liked wearing those 2 pairs of mitts as well. So then in June I was apparently inspired by the mitts that I had made for my daughters, and I made a pair of mittens for myself. And these are the mittens from the Vienna Set from Petite Knit, which is a set that comes with both a scarf and a mitten pattern. And it contains, it's a very classic mitten, but it contains this beautiful rolled stockinette edge, which I quite like. And in the pattern, the cuff is written to be even longer than that, but I opted to do it a bit shorter because I wanted to be able to still put on the mittens when I already had my coat on. So I really like the way those turned out. I used 2 yarns together. So this is leftover Plötolopi from my Saturday Shrug. So I held 1 strand of the white together with 1 strand of the gray, and I really liked the way those 2 mulled together. I do have to say I had a bit of an issue when I grafted the top when I grafted the top here at the end, because the yarn kept breaking on me when I was doing the Kitchener stitch. So in the end I decided to hold it together with 1 strand of a simple sewing thread to give it a bit more stability, and then it wasn't an issue at all. But unfortunately, similar to my Saturday Shrug, the yarn is just a tad too scratchy for me to enjoy wearing on my hands, and especially on my wrist. It does feel a bit prickly, and yeah, I hardly wear those, which is such a pity, and I'm thinking about knitting those again in a different yarn. Another project that I finished in June was another pair of Camaret Socks that I knitted again for my mother-in-law. This time I used 1 strand of a silk mohair from Drops, so it was the Drops Kit Silk in the undyed cream or white colorway that I naturally dyed myself using both logwood and madder, and it turned out a very beautiful shade of purple. And I held this together with some knitted yarn from Honor Rock Air. This was just a beautiful apricot and a purple color that I got in one of their surprise packages. This made for the fluffiest, coziest socks, and my mother-in-law, I think, was very happy when I gifted those to her on her birthday in July. I continued knitting socks with knitted yarn in June, and I finished a pair of Kura Socks, which is a free pattern or more of a recipe basically from Miss Evil Knits, which comes in the form of video tutorials. I'm going to link it for you in the description box in case you're interested. This was my first time knitting a pair of socks toe up, and I do have to say, while I liked learning this new technique, I am not very happy with the fit. I think it's due to the fact that I have a very high instep and that I just couldn't get the shape of the socks in order to fit me in a good way. I can hardly put those on, and once they're on, they are completely fine, and I love the way they turn out, but yeah, I don't really wear them, which is such a pity. I am thinking about unraveling them and knitting them again top down using the same motif. They have this beautiful grass stitch motif that is explained in the video tutorials from Miss Evil Knits. And I also really like the combination of colors here, but yeah, I pretty much do not wear them, which is such a pity. The yarns that I used are also from the Nutiden surprise package, and I really enjoyed seeing how those came together. I melt them together with one strand again of the white Plötolopi from Istex to give them a bit more stability, and I really like how they came out, but yeah, I don't really wear them. And I also finished the Baby Bear Bonnet by Pernille Larsen from Knitting for Olive in June. I made this super cute bonnet for my nephew who was born in July of 2024, and my, how do you call it in English? So the wife of my brother. Is it my sister-in-law? How would you call that? Please let me know. So the wife of my brother, who is the mother of my nephew, picked out the color, and she went with the slate gray of compatible cashmere from Knitting for Olive together with Knitting for Olive's merino in the colorway Raccoon. And I really like how these colors meld together, and I also really enjoyed the look of the Baby Bear bonnet. The knitting part was just a bit too fiddly for my taste with the shaping of the ears and everything, but I really like how the whole piece came out. So after I had finished the Baby Bear bonnet in June, I finished the Baby Bear Balaclava at the beginning of July, and I made this pattern for another niece of mine who is the older sister of my nephew that was born in July of 2024. I used the same yarn, so again the compatible cashmere together with Knitting for Olive merino, and similar to the Baby Bear bonnet, I think it's a very cute pattern. I love the way it came out, but I did not very much enjoy knitting this piece. Unfortunately, it is also just a bit too snug for my niece. I think she was able to wear it last winter or in this season, but it's not going to fit her next winter season. But luckily she can then pass this piece on to her younger brother, but this was just a bit unfortunate. Although I think I did knit the 3 to 4 year old size, and she's 3. Maybe she is just too big, but yeah, it's just a very snug pattern. This already brings us into August, and in August I finished the Cumulus Tee by Petite Knit. So this is knitted in Knitting for Olive's Pure Silk, and I purchased the colorway Cream and then naturally dyed it myself using avocados, and I love the way how it came out, both the colorway and the tee as well. It is a very beautiful dusty shade of pink, and it is a perfect basic wardrobe staple for the summer months. I think it looks very beautiful. I also really liked knitting this piece and am overall very happy with it, and I would definitely knit again with the pure silk and also knit another basic tee like this one for my wardrobe this year. In September, I finished a dress for myself, and this is the Hilja Dress by Ronja Hakaleto. Let's see if I'll be able to fit it in the frame, but I'm also going to put up either a picture or a clip so that you can see how it looks on me. I used the recommended yarn, which is Holst Garn Coast, which is a blend of wool and cotton, and I mulled 2 colorways together. The ones that I used are called Nimbus and Sapphire, and I really like the way this came out. I only bought 3 skeins of each, so I was running a bit short on yarn, and I knit the second to smallest size, but in the end I was able to make it work. So you start at the top and then knit down, but I opted to finish the upper part of the body first, so I added the neckband and also the how do you call that, the ribbing for the arms, and then I simply knit down until I was running out of yarn, and it gave me a very good length, and I'm very happy with it overall. I have not worn this a ton because I already finished it in September and it was a bit late in the season. It's perfect just to wear under a cardigan, but I'm hoping to get a bit more use out of it in the summer of this year. To be honest, if there's one thing that I'm not too happy about is the way that it just comes in slightly around the shoulders here in the neck part, and I am just not a big fan of the whole racer back aesthetic, at least not on me. I am thinking about unraveling the ribbing around the armholes and just adding like maybe a cap sleeve to be able to wear it just a bit more, because it did take a lot of time to make and I think it's very pretty. I would love to wear this piece more, so we'll see if I get around to doing that. But overall, I think the Hilja dress is a very beautiful pattern and I can highly recommend it. Another dress that I finished in September is the Peachy dress by Shayna Bilo. I made this pattern for my older daughter and I used again the Sheepier's Sunkissed, so the 100% cotton yarn that I also used for the Clara dress for my niece. The color I used this time is the 18 Beach Hut Blue and I needed 8 skeins of it to make the dress for my daughter, who is 10 years old. I think it came out very cute. She really liked the dress, but it is just a tiny bit too tight for her in the arm portion of the dress. So I'm thinking about unraveling just the upper part of the body because the dress is knitted bottom up, and giving her just a couple more rows of length in this part, so it will be a bit more comfortable for her to wear come this summer. But overall, I'm very happy with this knit. And I did one more gift knit in September, and this is a pair of socks that I made for a friend of mine who had a birthday in September. This is again my Camaret Socks pattern, again with the drops kid silk that I naturally dyed myself, held together with a skein of sock yarn. The sock yarn that I used is my own hand-dyed yarn. This is the Luster Sock DK base in the colorway Ash, which is dyed with rose petals, and I really like the way those came out, and my friend really enjoyed this gift as well. In October, we visited our friends who are currently living in Houston, Texas, and while we were doing a road trip to Big Bend National Park, I taught some of the kids how to knit, and they all made the classic ribbed hat by Pearl Soho. But one of the kids wasn't really into knitting and decided to quit learning how to knit, and then I came in and finished the hat for him. I'm going to put up a picture because of course it stayed with him in Houston. We just picked up some inexpensive yarn from Joann's. I think it might even be an acrylic yarn that he chose because of the vibrant colors, and yeah, this is how the hat came out. He really loved it and I really enjoyed teaching the kids how to knit. Another project that I finished in October is my Maeron sweater, and this is a pattern by Natasha Hornby from Moonstruck Knits. Now this was quite the journey. I think I started this project already in May of this year, but I had several hiccups along the way. I didn't have enough yarn, so I had to order more, and since this is a project that you knit sideways, I accidentally knitted one of the sides twice and I only noticed towards the end, so I had to unravel the whole thing and knit the other half. So there was a lot of unnecessary knitting within this piece. Although I did order more skeins of the main color, I was still running a bit low on yarn, so I had to crop the sweater a bit more than what I personally would have liked. And yeah, overall, although I think the pattern is absolutely stunning and I love the way it looks, I hardly wear this piece. Let me see if I'll be able to show you. It is just very stiff. In order to get close to the recommended gauge, I decided to hold the yarn double, and I think this just resulted in a very stiff fabric. It's certainly not fault of the pattern or the yarn. I think it's just a poor yarn choice on my side, and since I like this pattern so much, I am thinking about knitting this one again in 2025. But yeah, it is a bit sad because it took a lot of time and I think it's very beautiful, but I hardly ever wear it. By the way, the yarn that I used is Wool Dreamers Saona, which is a blend of cotton and wool. And the colorways are Ozeda is the neutral color and 1985 is this grayish blue. And I really like the yarn, but yeah, like I said, I might be able to find a project that is just a bit more suited for the yarn than this knitting project. So that brings us into November, and in November I made yet another pair of Camaret Socks, this time as a gift for my mom. At that time my mom was in a rehabilitation clinic to recover from a rather severe health issue, and when we had the chance to finally visit her, I wanted to bring her something handmade, something cozy, and I decided to make her a pair of socks. I used again the drops kid silk that I naturally dyed myself with logwood and madder and held it together with some different colorways of Nutiden yarn from Honor Air. It was a quick and enjoyable knitting project, and in case you're interested, I even filmed the whole project because I was in a bit of a time crunch when making it. I'm going to link the video for you if you would like to watch it. But overall, this was a fun project and my mom was very surprised and very happy with this gift. I also finished the sweater that I'm wearing right now in November, and this is the Porcelain Damask sweater by Lene Holme Samsø. Now this pattern came out, I think, at the beginning of October in 2024, and as soon as I saw it, I knew that I had to make it. I was really drawn to this Guernsey style knit pearl texture, and I just enjoyed the overall look of the design. And this was also my first time using the popular yarn combination from Knitting for Olive, so their soft silk mohair together with their merino yarn. The colorways that I chose are the Nordic Beach for the merino and Oat for the soft silk mohair. And I love the way this one came out. I wear it a ton. I think it looks very beautiful and elegant, but at the same time it's very comfy and cozy, and yeah, I just love it. It does have a little bit less positive ease on me than what was recommended in the pattern, but I think it still looks, yeah, just fine, and absolutely love it. The sleeves grew a ton in length when blocking, so they are maybe just a tad bit too long, but I don't really mind that. I really like cozy sleeves that are a bit longer, and I really like to pull them up like this. So overall, I'm absolutely happy with this piece, and this will certainly not have been my last knitting pattern from Lene Holme Samsø. So that brings us into December, and in December I finished the sweater number 28 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. So this was another wonderful knitting project that I enjoyed so much. It was a very enjoyable knit, and I also love to wear this sweater. I used two different yarns held together for this project. I used one strand of a 100% cashmere yarn that I unraveled from a store-bought sweater that belonged to my father-in-law and that he was no longer using. And I held it together with a strand of the Hill Country Weavers yarn, which is called ACW HCL. And the HCL stands for Alpaca Cashmere Love. So this is a blend of alpaca cashmere and silk. And I used their undyed yarn in the colorway Silver. And I love the way those two colors are playing together. I think it looks very pretty, and I've worn this sweater a ton. The only modification I made is that I made the neck double the size as it is originally written in the pattern. Let me see, because I really like to fold it in and wear it like this, because I think it looks just very chic and elegant. And although I was not sure about the shape of the sweater originally, and I wasn't convinced that I would enjoy this more boxy shape, I do have to say I like it a lot, and I think it looks very modern and elegant, but it's also so cozy at the same time. So I love to wear this piece, and I can highly recommend that you knit the sweater number 28. I also did a couple of gift knits in December for Christmas, and the first pattern that I made is the Santa pillow by Kathy Lewinsky. I made this pillow as a present for my parents, and the yarn that I used is the Sentence Garn Peer Gynt. I'm going to link my Ravelry project page in the description box so that you can have a look at the colorway names in case you're interested. This was another very enjoyable knit. It knit up rather quickly, and my parents really enjoyed this gift. And the second gift knit that I made was a hat for my sister. I knitted the Oslo Hat by Petite Knit, again in Sandnes garn. This time I used Stubble Sunday from the Petite Knit color range, and it was the colorway 5930. I used 2 full skeins to make this one and just barely broke into the third skein in order to make the women's size, which I think is called a medium in the pattern. So overall, I was very pleased with my gift knitting in December because they were all very well received. So those were all the pieces I finished knitting in 2024. Let's have a look at the statistics now. So I made a total of 29 pieces. 19 of those were gift knits, and 10 of those pieces I knitted for myself. And out of those 29 projects, 3 of them were sweaters, 1 was a cardigan. I made 4 dresses, 1 summer top, and 6 pairs of socks. So overall, I was very pleased with my knitting year in 2024, and I also wanted to highlight a couple of my favorites. So I have prepared a couple of questions. My favorite knitting pattern, that's a difficult one. I think it has to be either the Porcelain Damask sweater or, where is it? The sweater number 28 by my favorite Things Knitwear. I really enjoyed both working on these projects a lot and also wearing them. So those were definitely my top 2 of 2024. My favorite yarn of 2024 definitely has to be Nutiden yarn from Honorok Air. I knitted with unspun yarn for the very first time in 2024 and really fell in love with it, with the versatility, the feel of the yarn, the different colorways, and just the way it feels when wearing it. It makes you feel so cozy and wrapped and comforted. It is very hard to describe, but I very much enjoy knitting with Nutiden yarn, and I can highly recommend that you give it a try and see for yourself if you haven't done so yet. My most worn piece in 2024 has to be my shrunken timepiece cardigan by Albina McLaughlin. Like I mentioned when I talked about this knit earlier in this video, I loved wearing this cardigan before I accidentally felted it, and it is such a versatile and beautiful pattern that I would definitely make again in the future. So my main fiber craft for 2024 was definitely knitting, but I also learned how to spin in 2024. I got a spinning wheel for my birthday in May, and I have spun quite a number of different yarns during that time. And something else that I really like to do is sewing. I didn't get to a lot of sewing in 2024. In fact, I only made 1 piece for myself, but I wanted to show it to you nevertheless. And this is the Toaster Sweater by Sew House 7. The fabric I used is a, how do you call that? Like a sweat shirting fabric maybe. So it is very cozy on the inside. Let me see if I can show you. It looks like this. And it has these cute little specks. I really enjoyed this pattern. It was my first time making a toaster sweater, but I do have to say I did not wear this piece a lot because I think the fabric is just a bit too bright for my taste. I was expecting for it to be a bit more muted, and when it came in, I immediately thought that it is not ideal for me and what I like to wear, but yeah, I still enjoy it, and I would like to make this one again, but maybe in a different fabric. Something else that I made that is not knitted is those embroidered shirts that I made for my daughters. These were their Christmas presents for this year, and I really enjoyed working on these pieces. The one that you can see here is called Under the Arches, and it is from the book, how is it called? Embroidered Country Gardens by Lorna Bateman. And I also made one for my other daughter, and she chose this a lot simpler motif, which is Angel and Stitch from the Disney movie. Yeah, and those are the two embroidered pieces that I made in 2024. Sorry, I had to take a little break because the puppy decided to lay down directly in front of you, and I had to adjust the camera a bit. I hope it's okay now. So there are two conclusions that I would like to take with me from 2024 to 2025. The first one is that I would love to prioritize knitting from stash yarn as long as it takes me to reduce my stash back to a more manageable amount. I am not really comfortable having too much in my stash, especially when it comes to sweater quantities. So that's why I'm going to prioritize knitting from a stash for at least the first couple of months of 2025. And the second conclusion is that I do not enjoy having too many whips on the needle at a time. I had a time where I was just so excited about all the different patterns, and there are simply too many beautiful patterns out there. So I cast on a couple of different larger projects, so garment projects basically, and I realized that I do not really work on several garments at a time. I really like to have one garment to focus on, and that's why I still have a couple of lingering whips from 2024 that I took with me to 2025 that I would love to finish, but that I just didn't get around to because I simply had too many projects on the needle. So in the future, I would ideally only have one garment knitting project at a time on the needles, and then maybe just another accessory or something like that. And I think this would make me a lot happier and would also make the finishing process not as long, because if I have, I don't know, like 3 or 4 sweaters or dresses on the needles at a time, I cannot knit on all of them at the same time. So I'm really excited about 2024 and to see what the new year will bring. If you would like to know what I'm planning to knit this year, you should have a look at this video next. Until next time, bye guys!